Welcome to Virtual Kicking Pro Film Session. Today, we're going to look at a punter. That punter is Jake Bailey. He's in his second year of the NFL, where he's had a successful career before at Stanford and then now with the New England Patriots. He's done an outstanding job of control, directional punting, as well as really hanging it up there for fair catches. Because if you know anything about the New England Patriots Stadium, it's very difficult for kickers and punters to be consistent because of the wind, the rain, and the weather. But he's found ways to be successful day in and day out. So let's have a look. So I have two clips from two different angles during a warm-up. Let's look at his stance and alignment first. On both videos, you can see that his right foot is back, right? I would say heel to toe from left foot to right foot. This is a good stance for right-footed punters to have. Obviously, if you're left-footed, you're switching it up slightly. And then I'm going to look here on the right side. Notice his right toe is in line with the ball. If you're going open field punt, straight punts, that's what you want. You want that kicking toe in line with the ball. Now let's have a look at his steps. So after a low snap, he's going jab with his left, then right, left, and a punt. All right, so let's break down the punt on the left side first. We're going to talk about some things that he does uniquely and some things that he does really well that are common for most punters. But either way, the things he is doing, whether they're unique or common, are being very successful for him, his career, and the New England Patriots. So the first thing is, once he catches that ball, he's trying to get it to his shelf right away. Right? So notice he has a nice forward lean with his body. His eyes are pointed directly at the ball, really looking exactly where he wants his ball to be. And then we have a nice shelf right here about handshake level, waist high, that he's carrying that ball across. Now let's see the release. So the thing that I believe makes him so successful, especially at New England, is he's not tossing the ball out there. He's not extending it out. There's so many coaches out there that are saying, extend your arm straight and slide it out there and get it out there and then have your foot go and reach it. I disagree with that. I think you should have a nice extension with an obtuse angle on your elbow, and that's exactly what he has right here. Notice what he has right there. That's the angle he has, all right? It's not a straight arm. It's a slightly bent elbow. And notice when it comes out of his hand. All right, out of his hand here, this elbow, let me draw a little line, is still bent, right? Elbow is still slightly bent. He's not extending that ball. Next is notice when he opens that hand off of the ball, it's a nice release. Here, he's not pushing it, it's not snapping it. That way, one thing I always look at for younger punters compared to more talented guys is when you take the hand off the ball moves, not him. This is what makes him so talented at the New England Patriots. He's able to keep that ball still out of his hand, perfectly still. Secondly, let's look at the angle of the ball. I like how it's nice and flat. I would say it's slightly down and slightly in. That's going to allow for him to drop up and through that sweet spot. Let me zoom out a little bit so we can see more body mechanics. So I would say he's making contact right there in line with his opposite knee. That's a good spot to make contact. Notice how straight that toe is, how straight this leg is. Great extension. Really incredible on that extension of that toe. Next, he's not crunching at all. A lot of younger guys, when they punt, they try to crunch down. He's not working against himself here. He's trying to keep his chest up, and what that allows for is his hips are going to come through later on. You see how his hips come up and through? Right there. Good extension. All right. So based on this picture, you would say maybe he's not the most flexible punter out there, but that's fine. Flexibility helps, but it's not the determining factor of how good you're going to be. Bailey does an incredible job of staying nice and tall throughout the swing, allowing these hips to come forward, and that's what's going to give him more hang time, more distance, and more control. Now let's look at something unique he does. Notice what he does here. He stays on the ground. Now, that is all dependent on your style and your technique. Sometimes trying to get up off the ground when you punt throws a lot of punters off. So what he does, and there's a few other guys out there, I think if J.K. Scott is one of them, is they're not bringing their plant leg up off the ground. They're staying in the ground and just trying to have nice extension through the ball. Notice how control he is on the finish, right? He's not falling off. He's not all over the place because at New England Patriots, with the weather that they play in and the returners they're going against, you have to have great control. And so it starts with body control and controlling that drop consistently. And he does an awesome job with that. Now let's look at the second clip on the right side. The first thing I'm doing is I'm looking at his steps. So he's going jab, right? And I think that foot looks pretty flat right here. Nice flat step. Notice how straight that line is. The other thing that I'm looking at is his toes. This first toe, notice it's pointing straight to where that ball came from. And then on the finish, I'm looking, let me get some of this out of the way. I'm looking at this left toe is pointed straight as well. A lot of the times, kids, when they take bigger kicks, they take bigger steps, their toes bow out to the left or to the right. That allows too much rotation of the hips to go left or right, and then their follow through goes left or right as well. It all starts with your toes. Make sure those toes stay straight. And so notice what he does here from this angle, and I really love this angle because as a coach, I'm looking right here at his hip. From this angle, I should slightly see the ball because this is the line he's taking. Okay, he should be dropping the ball on this line. So I should be able to see that ball slightly outside of his hip, which I see. We can see how tall he is, how long he is. Notice on that backswing, that toe is nice and locked, nice and straight. He's driving his knee to that ball and then locking the leg off on the finish. So let's look at follow through. Here's the follow through, probably the middle of the head. And I think that's usually good. I would say most guys are going to end up in the middle of their head or maybe that off shoulder. The problems are if you go off to the left too much, that's when you're smacking the ball or coming around it. So really coming up and through. And then lastly, he's consistent at what he does. If he doesn't come off the ground, he's not coming off the ground, but he's nice and smooth and consistent through the ball. Now let's pull out and see the whole punt. Nice and controlled. He's not trying to kill the ball at all. One thing he doesn't do, and I don't suggest you do, don't kick for show. Just don't kick for the biggest hang times, the biggest distance. You're kicking for consistency. Be consistent at what you do. Now let's have a look at his Aussie punt. For the Aussie punt, you're really using this as a pooch punt. You're trying to drive that ball close to the goal line without going in. So we're putting that backspin on the ball. So let's look exactly how he holds the ball, how he hits it, and how he finishes. So he's carrying the ball much lower, okay? He's carrying the ball down at his knees. Before, when he's doing a regular open field punt, it's up here at his waist. So the height difference as far as the shelf goes is different. On an Aussie punt, it's lower. The second thing I notice is he's much more leaned over at an angle. Before, when we were looking at his regular open field punt, he was still leaning forward, but he was more here, a little bit taller. He's bent over much more on this swing. Now let's look at the way he holds the ball. It's more of a pinch at the top. He's not holding here or here. He's pinching the top of the ball, keeping that ball down. Notice the nose of that ball is pointed down to the ground. It's not perfectly straight up and down. It's slightly forward. Now to allow more space for his foot to come up and through the ball. Now let's look how low that ball is, okay? This is where he's making contact, almost at his calf, at his shin, because the lower that ball is and when he hits it, he's trying to drive it for distance, all right? So the line of scrimmage from where he went was the opposite 45. So he's trying to get it down inside the 10-yard line. Another tip for when you do Aussie punts is really emphasize your knee drive. And what I mean by that is notice how his knee is driving at the ball and it's generating power up through the swing. Driving your knee to the ball allows you to develop more power from your hips and then translate it to a lockout of the leg which ultimately results in a higher, further Aussie punt. Notice how close that ball is to him. All right. I would say his regular punt, the drop is out here. He's trying to keep it close to drive it and to have maximum power. He doesn't necessarily have to have perfect technique here because it's a bigger spot to do an Aussie punt as far as the sweet spot goes than a normal open field spiral punt. But he keeps that drop closer to him as well. But his foot still stays on the ground. He still has a nice tall follow through with that toe pointed, similar to his open field.